There's a lot of information online telling you what is the best way to learn. Some of them are extremely sophisticated, they have a lot of steps. You have various methods, you have active recall, Pomodoro, elaborative interrogation, and many more. But the way I see it, we can actually simplify this process by focusing on some principles. The first principle is respect your physiology. So as we know, sleep is a crucial aspect in terms of our ability to integrate information, to receive information, and actually store it. So taking care of your sleep, I would say, is the first step. You can have extremely fancy learning techniques and all of that, but if you're not having sufficient sleep, then you're actually limiting a lot of your ability to learn. Another core principle relates to the volume of our study. So as we know, and we have several studies pointing to this, it is far better to separate our bouts of study instead of trying to cram all of our study sessions into one. So this is the idea of spaced repetition. The third principle is to incorporate some sort of self-testing. It has been widely mentioned that one of the problems with the educational system is that it employs tests as a way of assessing academic performance or even promote learning. But testing is actually very important. Testing is important because if we look at neuroplasticity, which is the capacity of our nervous system to adapt itself to the environment, one of the key drivers of this plasticity are errors. So errors are essentially what drives our brain's need for change. By making errors, you are essentially having feedback that allows you to change your course of action. So when we are studying, it is important to always incorporate some degree of testing. You can do this by just writing flashcards where you ask yourself questions about whatever topic you are learning. If you are, for example, this is even the case with, let's say, courses which require more memorization. But if you're studying math, for example, it's also very important to do a lot of exercises and test yourself, because it is through making those mistakes that you are literally priming your brain to change. The fourth principle is to engage with the material that you are learning. As we know, highlighting, passive reading is not enough. It is important that when you are studying, you ask questions about whatever you are learning, that you try to understand what is the relevance for that certain topic. Many of us, when we are in whatever level of education, we tend to have this idea that what we are learning is pointless. And in some situations that might be the case, but oftentimes there's a reason for why we are learning that. Because as we know, knowledge is built through different layers, many layers. And so sometimes in order to learn a certain thing, you need to have prerequisite knowledge. For example, if you're learning organic chemistry, you better know general chemistry as well, at least to some extent. So understanding that even if we don't see a purpose for whatever we're learning, most of the times it serves as a building block. The final principle is passion. So this isn't often mentioned when we see videos about learning, but passion is an important aspect of learning. Normally when we are trying to learn something, it's because we actually want to learn it. However, in many situations, the reason for why we are learning, a certain skill is because we need to pass a class, or because we have put in our minds that this is the path we need to take, and society expects this of us, so we need to do this course and we need to get this degree. But the problem with this is that it really takes down the purpose of learning. I see it with a lot of people, and this to some extent also happened with me, which was, for example, in high school or even middle school, you have a lot of these books which you must read for your classes. And many times the books that you are reading aren't really exciting. So what ends up happening is that you start disliking the act of reading. You don't really pursue reading of your own. And for many people, this takes a long time to actually come back and understand that learning isn't boring. It's just that you are learning in suboptimal conditions. Like I said previously, there are certain things that we need to learn that will be boring because we need to learn them in order to evolve, because whatever we actually want to do requires that as a prerequisite. However, if everything you're learning is boring, then I think you need to rethink your position. You need to rethink whether you actually want to study whatever you are studying. Because at the end of the day, passion is an extremely important aspect of learning. And as we know, people who are passionate about what they're doing will always be better than other people who are forcing themselves to do that. So the last principle that I want to mention is the introspective part, where you ask yourself whether this is actually what you want to be learning. And unless there are very weird circumstances where you need to actually just be learning whatever you are learning, you should, if everything regarding that degree or everything regarding that certificate or diploma or whatever is boring, then you need to rethink it and perhaps pursue other avenues. This forced path that we put ourselves on is one of the main reasons why I believe some people have a very negative perspective of education, and then they end up just condemning every form of education as boring or as a waste of time. So I guess my final remark is to allow your curiosity to drive your education and to drive your learning. Follow it.